Contra Hardcore, one of my favorite Genesis games. It was the sixth installment in the Contra series and exclusively for the Genesis. The game takes place 5 years after Contra 3. You start out on the streets as it's being attacked by unmanned weapons, and from there you'll go into a variety of different stages depending on the choices you make in the game. I would first like to say that I've heard this is the hardest Contra game in the series. In fact, if you played Contra 4 and you looked in the bonus content museum section, you'll see that it pretty much says the same thing there. So if you're one of those gamers that don't want to play something too challenging, then this game may not be for you. For those who want fast, adrenaline-pumping action, then this game is right up your alley. Unlike most Contra games, you can now choose between 4 different characters. You don't have to choose between what upgrades you want anymore. Now you can carry up to 4 different weapons at once. You can also power up your default weapon, and you can still carry bombs. Another addition to the game was to be able to switch between firing modes. You could run and gun or stay still and fire in all directions. Since each weapon except the default one varies from character to character, this offers new ways to play and learn the game by adjusting yourself to that character's weapons. Honestly though, I think the robot has a bit of an advantage compared to the others. He has a double jump which might just be there to make up for the height difference with the other characters, and most of his weapons just seem stronger than the others. Everyone, however, can slide by simply holding down and pushing the jump button, which is good if foot soldiers are in the way. There are also 2 major path choices to make in the game. I say 2 because there's one choice you can make toward the end that has you joining up with the enemy. However, after you do this, you're treated to a game over screen after the text flies, and given the chance to continue as if you lost all your lives. So 4 different endings in all, 6 if you count the bad one I just mentioned, and the Easter egg type ending, plus the variety of different characters, that about adds up to what I call great replay value. And just like the other Contra games, there's co-op play too. It works the same way as in the other games. Once you or a friend has lost all their lives, they can steal lives from the other player to continue. That is, if they have any left. After a while, this can be frustrating if you're playing with someone who's new to the game. But, if you're both new to the game, however, then it won't matter because chances are you'll both be dying equally as much. Given the different characters and the power-ups specifically made for that character, gives you the chance to pick favorites, and your friend can pick his too. However, you can't pick the same one, so one of you will have to settle for another character if your favorites happen to be the same. So how hard is the game? Well, you start with 3 lives, you die when you get hit once, and you have 5 continues. That's it. However, you can get extra lives as your score increases, and unlike most Contra games, there isn't too much of a random factor here. Instead, the game thrives off of boss fights, some of which have multiple forms, but each one only has a few attack patterns to memorize. So you might die a few times trying to figure out those patterns, but once you do, and as you go through the game again and again, you'll notice the right weapon in the right situation can make things all the more easier. Now, some people gripe about music and sound effects when it comes to Genesis games, but this game has some pretty good tricks which play along nicely with the game's fast run-and-gun gameplay. I don't think I need to talk about the graphics because they're great, and with all the stuff I mentioned earlier, it shouldn't matter. This game should be right for anyone that's looking for a great, challenging action game. There are also a few interesting facts about the game as well. Did you know the Japanese version gives you 3 hit points? And it also has some cheat codes that are neither in the US or PAL version. You get codes such as 70 lives, stage select, and a cheat that will give you all your power-ups. Also, why aren't any of these codes the actual Konami code? That's weird. Also, I forgot to mention that even though you have 3 health points, something that would normally cause instant death, such as falling into a pit, won't kill you. Instead, you just lose a hit point. I think there are unlimited continues too, because there isn't a number next to the word continue in the Japanese version. So at 3 hit points, and a questionable amount of continues, you basically have, well, I wouldn't say that, it's just a tad easier than the US and PAL version. It's a good version to practice with, I guess. Then there's the PAL version. If you don't already know, the older PAL Contra games don't have you play as humans, but instead you play as robots. And the games aren't called Contra, they're called Probictor. To be honest, I'm not exactly sure why this was changed. I've heard it was to make the game not seem so violent. For the most part, the game stuck to the main story in the manuals. Apparently, they were even a little more accurate than the way the US manuals described them. However, Contra Hardcore, which is simply just known as Probictor for the Mega Drive, had some changes made to the story plot in the actual game itself. The alien cell is now called the X-Drive. Dead-Eye Joe is now just an alien commander. The Colonel, one of the main bosses himself, is an alien. One of the side characters doesn't even become a traitor. Even the choice that has you joining the enemy side was removed. The robot character is the only one that wasn't changed, but everyone else was changed into a robot. As far as the rest of the game goes, it's still the same, with the word damn replaced here and there. Overall, Contra Hardcore, or Probictor, whatever it's known as to you, is a great game and a fantastic addition to the series. My only gripes are just nitpicks, really. The fact that you fight so many bosses, there's hardly any random things to keep you on your feet. Also, there are some weird things in the game that I never saw in any other Contra title. Take these guys jumping onto each other to form different objects. I'd expect that from Gunstar Heroes, but not Contra. It's kind of silly, but not nearly as silly as this. Here's a secret place near the end of Stage 3. Why on earth am I fighting a Belmont? And what's with this ending? This was the Easter egg ending I was talking about. I got stuck in the past apparently, and there is this monkey with a heart over its head. I will admit though, this ending is rather humorous. Anyway, like I said, Contra Hardcore is a fantastic entry into the series. I highly recommend it if you're looking for a challenge.